Right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Fireside chat here with OpenAsset and Price and Myers. We'll give everyone just another 30 seconds or so. I see folks joining, which is great. And we'll go ahead and kick things off shortly here. It's great to see people still joining. I'm sure they'll continue to do so. In the meantime, let's go ahead and kick things off. So, again, welcome to the second Fireside Chat. This week, I am very excited to speak with Morven Mitchell at Price and Myers. So, let's go ahead and kick things off without further ado. So, just want to run through a quick agenda of what we will be hitting on in today's session. So for those of you who joined our first session with Chris from Theater Projects, really this is meant to be just a casual conversation. I have had the pleasure of working with Morven and getting to know her over the past few months, and as an open asset customer, and just personally, and really excited to just chat with her about her role and hit on some hot topics in the AEC space. So, a couple of topics specifically that we'll be hitting on. We'll start by chatting through some frequent challenges with organizing and managing digital assets, right? There's so much content out there. How in the world do we organize it and manage it? So, we'll be hitting on that. Next, on a related note, we will be chatting about really ensuring that data quality and ownership as it pertains to projects, employees, and digital assets. Again, in today's day and age, there's so much data out there. And so we'll be kind of talking about how to ensure that that data is correct. It is, accurate again when it comes to those types of things, such as projects, employees, and digital assets themselves. And then we'll wrap up by um, really chatting about kind of providing some firm-wide visibility and access to relevant digital content. This is something also that Morv and I have chatted about, and kind of in the early stages working with Price and Myers of getting OpenAsset opened up outside of just the marketing department and the comms department into and opening up to some other folks throughout the practice, such as architects, engineers. So we'll chat through some ways that we're thinking through that. And as we're going through here, feel free to drop any questions that you have into the Q&A button on the Zoom toolbar. We'll do our best to leave a few minutes of time at the end to answer any of those, but rest assured, any that we don't get to, I will be sure to follow up with you directly via email this week with more information on any questions that you have. So don't be shy dropping those in there. So one more slide here, and then we'll go ahead and kick things off. Who you'll be hearing from today. My name is CJ, for those of you who I have not had a chance to connect with directly, or for those who have not seen me, maybe on a training or various videos across OpenAsset, but I am a customer success manager here. And really my role is to help our customers be successful and hit their goals. And leveraging OpenAsset to do that. So I've been here now since November, actually. Really enjoying my time here, getting to know our customers. So that's a little bit about me. And as I mentioned, joining us, we have Morven from Price and Myers. So Morven, I'll kick it over to you for a quick intro on your side.
Yeah, hi, CJ. Hi, everyone. I'm Morven Mitchell. I'm Communications and Bid Manager at Price and Myers. Price and Myers are structural and civil engineers, established in 1978. We've got about 170 staff. We have studios in London, that's our main studio, and Oxford, Nottingham, and Manchester. My background is I did a degree in English and one in psychology. After graduating, I found my way into marketing departments for a variety of industries, including hospitality, football, horse racing. I kind of fell into working on architecture and engineering, and haven't looked back. I love it. It's a great industry to be working in. Everyone's really professional and intelligent and nice to work with and for. I like that the work is kind of a really nice blend of the creative and the tangible, making a physical imprint on the world. I particularly like going around, London and seeing lots of our jobs. I've been with P&M for a long time. A large part of that in the London studio, and I moved back to my home in Scotland 7 years ago, work remotely, most of the time attending the studios every month. And yeah, I've been with P&M for so long, probably because of the excellent colleagues and being a nice place to work, and the kind of work P&M do is really appealing as well. We do everything from sort of extensions to private houses, sort of small jobs like that, to big heritage jobs on buildings everyone knows, like Westminster Abbey, or modern listed buildings like the Royal Festival Hall. We've got a nice job at the moment at the Royal Observatory in Greenwich. And we work on refurbs of big cultural buildings like the National Portrait Gallery and the Young V&A, and also schools and hospitals and large regens and everything else in between. I like their strong emphasis on sustainability. And we've got people in the practice that builds research and have built tools to help reduce embodied carbon in the built environment. And I also really like working for engineers. I find them really straightforward and frank about the way that they speak about their work. Sometimes a little bit too much so, being British and engineers. And in the comms team, you have to kind of winkle out some of the interesting stuff sometimes. But it's a great industry to work, and I find it really enjoyable for the work and the people.
That's awesome. Thanks for that intro, Morven. I actually did not know that you previously had worked in the marketing space. It was that experience was so diverse, and that's really cool to hear that you ended up and are loving the AEC space. I love that you mentioned walking around London and seeing your work there. That's been one of my favorite things about working in the AEC space is, for instance, I'm in Madison, Wisconsin here. I think I forgot to mention working remotely. Also, I was in Chicago just a couple weeks ago, and actually seeing our customers' buildings in real life, taking the architecture tour was really, really neat. I think that's an awesome part about this industry is seeing people experience that in the real world is really neat. So great. Well, thanks for sharing that background, Morven. I'll go ahead and just do a quick icebreaker, and then we'll go ahead and dive in to the topics. So, Morven, one question for you, just to break the ice a little bit. What is one thing that you're most excited about? And this can be personal and or professional.
I like this question. I think, I'll try and do something for both. I think for on the professional side, at work, we're opening up a new studio in the new year, and it's going to be an entirely female-led studio and an entirely female staff studio, which is brilliant in the engineering sector. I'm really delighted about that. Also on the work side, I'm pretty excited by the new AI tool that has popped up on my OpenAsset reminders recently, and it's quite funny sitting in pubs recently and wondering aloud to friends if our job is going to be completely taken over by AI. I hope not, but I'm quite looking forward to having a go at that. And on the personal side, I don't know, we've got my sister over from Tokyo at the moment with my niece, and in COVID we hardly saw each other, and because they're so far away we don't see each other much. So I'm delighted to be doing a bit of sickeningly wholesome family fun time and outdoor time with them at the moment. How about you?
Awesome. Yeah, those are great. The female-led staff is really, really exciting. I'm excited to hear more about that as that comes to fruition. That's so cool. Yeah, the AI stuff, I know it's everywhere now, right? You're hearing it everywhere you go, and I know that there's a lot of uncertainty. We were excited to kind of kick things off with we've had a couple of ways to help customers with kind of AI suggested keywords and the similar images, finding an image that's similar to one that you've identified. Really, I think like most companies, I hope out there are trying to think of how this can be done thoughtfully and securely. And one thing that I I learn more and more every day as I'm talking with AEC folks is, I view this as a way to complement the, let's say, the AEC marketer's role, where I speak with a lot of marketers that get so bogged down by kind of the formatting of documents and coming up with project descriptions, and those may not be exactly the same thing, but I think something like a project generator that can give you a good start, but then really let you use your skills, your creativity. I'm optimistic that that piece will always be there, that human element that is that really comes and shines through, and not having AI just take over the entire project description, for instance, or employee bio, right?
Let's
I
hope
think,
not.
yeah, I think the same can be said for maybe a template out of OpenAsset, right? It's, hey, sure, we can generate a project sheet or a resume, but then where it really shines is where the let's say the AEC marketer can come in and really hone the messaging, the positioning to that particular proposal. They know that individual better than AI will, right? So they can add that story and make it feel human. So regardless, it'll be interesting to see how it all pans out. It's happening so fast. We'll be interested to, in a year from now, see where we're at with everything. Yeah. But yeah, I am very excited about the AI stuff as well. We're excited to release that new content assist feature. Feel free to check it out on our help site. For those of you who may not yet be familiar with that, we recently announced that feature, so feel free to check that out on our help site. Personally, along a similar line, I'm excited to spend some time with family this weekend. They're about 6 hours away. It's a bit of a hike to get there, taking a long weekend, which is always great to catch up with my parents, with my siblings. So that'll be great. All right. Cool. Well, let's go ahead and dive in, Morven. So first up, I would love to hear your thoughts a little bit about, can you share historically your firm's challenges with organizing and managing your digital assets?
So yeah, I mean, I'll keep this kind of focused on the how we've progressed with OpenAsset and how that's linked to how we've managed our own internal information. We've had OpenAsset for, I think, over 10 years. I think it was since 2011, which I think makes us quite early adopters of it. And this is where I slightly sheepishly acknowledge that we haven't always used it as efficiently as we could. So maybe this is a slightly cathartic process today of letting other people learn from things we could have done better, maybe. At the start of using the system, I think resourcing was one of the main things that kind of caused us a bit of an issue. It's a great system if you set it up well and have enough people using it well, but most of our early issues would have been to do with resourcing it well internally. So getting the images uploaded and tagged and the taxonomy set up properly. I think something that made a difference, or something that I would say I'd recommend now, is having someone who's taking responsibility for the system, ideally somebody that's good with systems and that's got a good stake in making it work. It naturally lies with the comms and marketing teams, obviously, but it's been really helpful for us to have a partner involved, one of the senior staff and an engineer, someone who also set up our CRM and project management system, and that can get things signed off quickly, and that can work with, and that worked with me and helps to make the system work, and gets good engagement around the practice as well. I'm sure it's not just us. I think everybody has problems with or did have problems with having multiple sources of information. So historically, we would be using Word and the Office folder structure and having InDesign documents in the system. And no matter how well organized we were, things would get moved and links would get dropped, and you'd have to rely on populating information in different places all the time. So kind of getting that information on projects consistent is probably a pretty universal problem, I imagine. Our engineering teams are great. They're really helpful. They're busy and focused on delivering projects, of course, but they respond really well to a deadline. So if we need to know right away about a project for a bid, for example, they'll respond quickly, but getting something planned and through all the information that you need about a project. So where the images might come from, and the permissions and the descriptions and the CV descriptions and the status of the job and other kind of standard project data. It's always a really time-consuming process. It's often incomplete, and it usually relies on some things happening later, so sometimes months later, and things can get forgotten or sidelined a bit. I'd also say that over the years, poor taxonomy organisation on our part has been a bit of an issue. So to start with, we had too many file keywords, and they would overlap with some of the project keywords, and that would mix up what was suitable for the project taxonomy and what was suitable for the file keywords. We're a lot better at that now, which I think we'll talk about a bit later. Duplication was something else. If too many people are setting up keywords and administering the system, it could result in it not being kept tidy and managed well enough, and you'd end up with some keywords and things being duplicated, which is obviously not very efficient. I'd say, I mean, just generally getting help with populating information on the system always required really kind of quite a lot of training. You needed to have somebody, you know, it was quite hard to just ask for a bit of support here and there, or get a summer placement to do some of the work with you. It's really useful, but they kind of need to know why you want things done the way that you do and understand the system properly, and making sure people were kind of trained well enough if they were adding to the system was quite important. And I think the last thing on my list there was kind of getting templates right and getting them to work with the system. We had our ups and downs with that over time. Some worked brilliantly. The Word ones in particular, less so. We've had trouble with things like descriptions that would overrun the space that was allocated, and boxes aren't dynamic in the way that they would be in, you know, normal Word documents, because of the way that the templates had to be set up. So we've had a little bit of kind of working around those kind of problems. I think that's a decent summary of the issues we've had.
That's a great summary. Yeah, thank you for sharing those. A couple of things that jumped out to me that have been really helpful in getting your system to a good place that's helpful for you and your team are, first off, having someone who manages the system, you know, from the OpenAsset side, right? You know, really having that person who is comfortable with the system, who's uploading content and who is tagging it. So there is that semblance of consistency. You know, of course, there's not necessarily a right or wrong way, right? A lot of our customers have you know, multiple people that are uploading content to the system and tagging. That works great too for those firms, but I think just being clear within your team, within your department, on, you know, hey, this is kind of what the process looks like. These are the keywords that we have. This is when we upload content to OpenAsset. I think just mapping that out, even taking 30 minutes, right, to just map that out, document that out, just so everyone's on the same page, I know can be really, really helpful. And the other thing that jumped out to me, Morven, was just the keyword and the taxonomy. That's something that we come across a lot, and we work with a lot of customers on, is the tagging photos in projects with keywords is so helpful, but it can become difficult to manage if there's just so many, if there's some unused, if there are some that aren't relevant anymore. That's something that we work regularly on with clients, is really just taking a little bit of time to clean that up, tighten it up. And we found that directly benefits those folks who then are actively looking for projects and photos when they're working on a proposal or a social media post or whatever the case may be. And definitely something that we can help you all with. We also have some, you know, some ways that you're able to clean up those keywords and whatnot yourself, but you know, definitely something that we can work with you on. And then finally, the templates. I know I mentioned that in the beginning stages of this call, where we found those are a really great way to just take or save some time on those tasks that typically have taken a little bit longer, right? Finding this project description or the employee bio, pulling specific employee roles that you want to include on this resume, making sure that the formatting is correct, finding those right photos. So the ability to, that's great to hear that. I've been happy to see that we've got templates in a good place where you can, with a couple clicks, right, get those going, and then spend your time on the high value, high leverage tasks, really curating the documents specifically and tailoring them for the, let's say, proposal at hand. So also for all those of you out there who say, hey, we've got templates in our system, but they're outdated, so we never really use them. We work, again, regularly with our customers to get those updated. And so definitely something that we are happy to help out with.
And that's
Great.
certainly our experience, that you guys have, been incredibly useful and incredibly kind of available and knowledgeable in terms of sorting out almost, sorting out all these problems, or making a big difference in sorting out all these problems. It's the support has been great on that front.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. Great. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the next question. And this is definitely along the same topic, but with so much information available today, so many systems and applications being used, managing your data, making sure, again, that it's up to date is, I would say, A, more important, and B, more challenging than ever. Can you share how Price and Myers ensures data quality and ownership when it comes to things like your projects, employees, and digital assets?
So 5 years ago, we integrated OpenAsset with our CRM and project management system, which is CMAP. And this was a real game changer in terms of how well we could use OpenAsset and all of our data that's associated with it, and how well it works for us. It made really pretty substantial improvements in terms of how we're managing it, but also making sure that it stayed up to date, and that the information was coming straight from our CRM system and feeding into OpenAsset. It dealt with a lot of the challenges that I talked about already, as we now have essentially one source of truth for a project, which I think might be a term I nicked from you guys, meaning that we can maintain all of the associated information for a job. And that's the things that I've said before, like the description, the CV description, the image assets, but even quite detailed things like the listed status of a job, or the procurement type, or the client and architect contacts. A lot of that sort of information that we use quite regularly when we're telling people about our projects. And that can all be maintained a lot more efficiently. And the ownership of the project information and the employee information within an employee module is linked to the digital assets. And there's a kind of clear ownership structure that's managed centrally, which is through CMAP. I know there are lots of alternative systems, and CJ's in a better position to talk about those than I am, but I think Deltek's another really common one. But the principles, I think, remain the same in terms of integrating your CRM project management system and OpenAsset. For us, that involved a big export of all our projects from CMAP. Mapping the fields was the main bit of work for us to do, but actually OpenAsset's team did a lot of the work for us by doing a kind of mass integration, and it wasn't nearly as painful as expected. The field mapping worked really well. There were very few problems, just some minor anomalies, I think, which we needed to deal with, which were things like some number discrepancies and things like that. But it was really, good. It worked really well and really quickly. And then in terms of personnel, in 2020, it was the end of 2020, start of 2021, we got the employee module and started using that. Again, this worked really well. So once set up, I think you have to link people to projects manually, but OpenAsset did a lot of the work again for us by doing a big export at the start of the process so that we could link all the senior people with their projects that were listed on the CMAP system. So we've got over 30,000 projects, and each partner, an associate and senior engineer has worked on hundreds of projects each. So this was invaluable, took a huge chunk of the work out of it. And it was since then completely manageable, because we're now just doing it for new people or less experienced engineers and linking their projects to them on the system. One thing I would just maybe warn about on that front, depending on how your system is set up, is thinking about how accurate information on your CRM or project resource management system is. I say that because in our teams, people are often listed against a project at the start, but then there might be a delay to when they start working on the job, or people leave, or changes for some other reason. So you need to kind of weigh up, or we needed to weigh up the efficiency of linking directly to the system, depending on the accuracy of what's on there, against the accuracy you'd get if you were entering everything manually, accounting for human error, of course. So yeah, things that were kind of useful for us to think about when we were integrating were things like the fields themselves, how easily they would map how the system was set up, or how our system was set up already as in our CRM system. And they can have different field names to what's being put into OpenAsset, but there was a little bit of thinking to do about how to make sure the mapping was done correctly and efficiently. One thing that maybe others could learn from the way that we did it was we tend to have our contacts all grouped together on our CRM system. So all the contacts in a job are in a contacts field and not separated out by type. So for example, the architects and the clients and the contractors are all under contacts and not separated into their respective groups. When we're issuing information about a job, we tend to try to have those things come under the core data. So there wasn't a field to map that to, which made it a little bit tricky for populating fields in InDesign. So we have to do a slightly bodged job from our system of having it saved in the description and then doing it manually when it's moved over. But that's just to do with our CRM system. We spent a bit of time thinking about things like the subcategories. So for subcategories for client type and sector type, we tried to make sure those were matched as closely as possible, and we weren't creating lots of new unnecessary information that would that would ultimately what we wanted was something that would help shape the keyword structure. And we also tried to make it tally with what was already on our CRM and our website and our existing Office folders. So just for consistency across our various platforms. And we had a good taxonomy tidy, which is what we were talking about, CJ, earlier about, we did that following the integration where we rationalized the project keywords and the image file keywords so that they were clearly separate, and the project keywords are being fed directly from our CMAP system. They no longer had to be tagged manually, it was all kind of happening automatically. And the image keywords were much more specific to the individual elements of buildings or materials or special conditions, as they should be. But it just meant that everything was much better organized at that point and improved measurably, really. So yeah, what was I going to say about that? Yeah, I think that's kind of the main thing. Well, the last thing was templates that I'd mentioned already. Again, because we have now kind of got one point of truth on a project. And all that information is feeding into OpenAsset from CMAP. Again, those are kind of, those have been really well, those have been really improved as well by that kind of integration process. Yeah, I think that's the main things I can think of.
Those are great points. Thanks for running through those. You are correct, and I'll be very quick here that we do integrate with CMAP, of course, as Morven mentioned, also with Deltek and CoCentral. There are naturally, with plugging into systems like that, there are considerations. Definitely, we work with clients that say, "Hey, right, CRM system is it's a bit of a mess, maybe, or we're not sure exactly what information is accurate." So we're definitely happy to help chat through that with you. A lot of our customers just start maybe pulling over, for instance, a couple of fields, right, such as a project bio and maybe cost associated fields, but definitely that's great to hear that it's really enabled you to kind of have that single source of truth, as you mentioned, update your CMAP system and then know that that pushes out to OpenAsset without having to worry about or take the time to update multiple systems, and know that when you are looking at projects, when you're generating resumes and project sheets out of OpenAsset, that information is up to date and accurate. That's sounds like a nice peace of mind. So yeah, thanks for running through that. I know we're at time, but maybe Morven, if you don't mind, maybe just like a quick 45-second, just quick kind of teaser on that last question of how we have looked at opening up OpenAsset to other folks on your team. maybe just that quick teaser would be helpful, and then I can definitely follow up with folks if they're interested in learning more about how they can do that at their firm.
We kind of decided this year that the next thing we need to try and do is make OpenAsset much more useful for the wider practice and get more value from it for everybody. So we've been looking at the content, not just from the comms team eyes, but so that's, the kind of top quality finished projects, but more as a useful tool for the technical teams as well. We've got categories on there set up to include site photos and drawings and sketches. So we're working on developing those categories in particular which also link to CMAP. So they've got the kind of core pre-populated information as well. But we're asking engineers to do some of the uploading and help shape the file keyword taxonomy for those parts of it. We run site photos and drawings and sketchy competitions internally, which then mean that the kind of best of the output from the technical teams gets uploaded and tagged, ideally by them, but at least it's on the system so everyone can use it. And the idea is that this will really help. It's partly, really help our comms team stuff. It'll help with the content for the images that we can use for the proposals and the website and the word entries, but it will really help the engineers have a resource for reports and presentations and just being able to explain things visually, which they naturally prefer, and have good quality images that can show certain things like, specific types of connections or structural features, for example, and that only the really good stuff will be on there. We'll have to make sure it's not used as a dumping ground for all the site photos and all the drawings. It's just the best examples. But beautiful hand sketches and really outstanding Revit models can be uploaded, and it's something we're working on getting right now, making sure we've got the right bits of the system opened up and getting the right permissions, and that there seems to be a lot of engineers interested. So it could be the kind of next leap to making the system work well for us.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how this progresses. Yeah, I like a couple of things that you mentioned there. So for those folks on the call, if you're in your OpenAsset system, next to the search bar in the top middle of the screen, there's a categories drop down. So what Price and Myers has done is really created some specific categories, for example, their engineers who are able to then upload and have access to those photos that outline technical elements versus, of course, oftentimes, Morven, you're spending time with, right, employee headshots and completed project photos for proposals. So the cool thing about that, one of the cool things that you mentioned to me, is oftentimes if you were previously trying to upload and tag that technical photo, you're like, I don't know what I'm looking at here. I don't know what this
Exactly.
part is. And so providing those engineers and empowering them with the ability to have their own category, and then they can, for instance, create a quick album to save their favorites, so then when they're making a presentation or whatever the case may be, they can kind of have their own photos to display to clients, etc., as you mentioned, in a visual way, and you're empowering them to do that versus them having to maybe come to a department or that to the marketing department or whatnot. I also really like how you said, and I think this is a larger lesson, um, not necessarily everything needs to go into OpenAsset, right? I think that can be said for the kind of project photos as well. I know that it can get a little overwhelming, and it can, frankly, OpenAsset can turn into a bit of a dumping ground if we're trying to just say, hey, we want absolutely everything in OpenAsset. Some of our customers do, and they do that successfully. But we've also seen on the other side of the coin, a lot of our customers be really successful, say, hey, you know what, we're going to upload our 5 or 10 project photos, right? Our 5 best project photos to each project. We're not going to stress about trying to get every single thing in there and tagged. Let's not let perfect be the enemy of good here. Really, we're trying to, these are the photos that we're using most regularly anyway. So that just reminded me of something that I've been working with some customers on, and my colleagues have been working with some customers on, is kind of first and foremost, let's make sure that we get those best photos that you'll be regularly using in there, and then we can always expand out from there. Wonderful. All right. Well, we are 5 minutes over. So I thank you everyone for your time. I apologize that we did not get to the Q&A, but I will be sure to follow up with any of those that we were not able to get to. I'll email you directly this week. Morven, if you can wrap us up and bring us home here, if you can leave the audience with one takeaway from today, what would you say that it is?
Um, so I suppose it's getting your point of truth for the projects and kind of democratizing the system, which we've just talked about, but maybe also be a bit of a magpie, pick up the shiny bits of information about projects wherever you can. So practice meetings and CPD and things, and get it into your system, especially if it's integrated with, I mean, if you've got OpenAsset integrated with your system, you're kind of making it much more fluid and a quicker process if you kind of keep that information going all the time rather than having to sit down and stick it in there. Yeah. Is that okay?
Absolutely. I love that. Oh, those are some great takeaways. Yeah, those are some great nuggets. Absolutely. Great. Well, thank you everyone so much for your time and for joining us here this morning, this afternoon, this evening, wherever you are dialing in from. Morven, thanks so much for joining. Always love chatting with you and picking your brain. So thanks so much for taking the time. And we'll be sure to send out a recording of this to all of those folks who registered and attended here. So keep an eye out for that. And otherwise, hope everyone has a great rest of the day.
Nice to see you. Thanks very much.